God, I love Terrifier 2 so much. Let's do it. Terrifier 2 opens up showing us what happened the night of the Miles County Massacre, which the events of that we saw in Terrifier 1. Art the clown, who was thought to be dead, comes back to life and brutally murders the coroner. He then goes to the laundromat to wash his bloody clothes, and there he meets who we call the little pale girl. They don't speak to each other, obviously, because neither of them talk, but they start playing patty cake. Meanwhile, there's somebody else in the laundromat, and we see through his eyes that Art is playing patty cake with no one, so nobody else can see the little pale girl. Fast forward a year later, we meet our protagonist, Sienna, and she is putting the final touches on her Halloween costume for the year. We learn that the costume is this angel warrior character that her father created for her, and we also learn that her father passed away recently from a brain tumor. We also meet Sienna's brother, Jonathan, who seems to be weirdly obsessed with the Miles County Massacre and Art the Clown, to the point where he says that he wants to dress up as Art the Clown for Halloween this year. Later on, we end up learning that the reason that he's so obsessed with him is that he found his father's sketchbook, which consisted of sketches and newspaper clippings of Art the Clown and his victims from the massacre. That night, Sienna has a nightmare, and we get our infamous clown cafe scene. It's basically just a bunch of people dressed in clown suits singing "Come On By the Clown Cafe," and Art the Clown shows up and just murders all of them while Sienna just watches. Back in the real world, Sienna wakes up from the stream to a fire in her bedroom, which destroys part of her Halloween costume, but there's a sword that her father gave her that is completely unscathed by the fire. The next day, Jonathan is in school, and while he's walking in the hallway, he sees Art the Clown and the little pale girl holding a dead opossum. Meanwhile, Sienna's friends, Allie and Brooke, are discussing the Monica Brown show meltdown. They're talking about the events that we saw in the first Terrifier, where Monica Brown interviews the lone survivor of the Miles County Massacre, who, if you remember, is Vicky, the woman with the severely disfigured face who then brutally attacked Monica. This happens after that weird dream she just had, so while they're talking about this, Sienna has a total panic attack. Her friends apologize, and Sienna and Allie end up going to the costume store to get a replacement pair of wings for her Halloween costume that night, and they encounter none other than Art the Clown. Sienna is obviously super uncomfortable and tries to get out of there as soon as possible. Her and Allie make it out. Meanwhile, after they leave, Art brutally murders the guy working in the store. And then he follows Allie. Allie's home handing out Halloween candy, and she gets a knock on the door, and when she answers it, it's Art the Clown. And then one of the most brutal kill scenes that just goes on forever, Art kills Allie. I had to put this picture in black and white because there's so much blood and I still can't show what's going on behind me. This whole scene is so dramatic. Allie's mother comes home to find him killing her, and she's somehow still alive, and then he kills her mother. So Sienna has no idea this happened, and she's home getting ready for her Halloween party. So Jonathan now shows Sienna and their mom their father's sketchbook with all the newspaper clippings from the Miles County Massacre night. And we find out that the little pale girl is actually Art the Clown's first victim, who was a little girl named Emily Crane. Jonathan then explains to him, I think Dad was keeping all of this because he knew how to stop Art the Clown. But of course they don't believe him. Their mother, Barbara, who is just a raging bitch this whole movie, by the way, just tears up the sketchbook and then hits Jonathan, and he runs away. So he runs away, Sienna leaves for her party. So now Barbara's home alone, and she finds that her car is completely vandalized. She believes that it's Jonathan who did it, and she calls Sienna, who is drunk at a Halloween party. They end up kind of having a heartwarming conversation, and Barbara calms down and goes to clean off the car. And when she does so, who does she find inside the car? Yep. Art brutally murders her in a scene that includes shoving mashed potatoes into her gaping face. And Jonathan returns home to see this happening. Jonathan runs into Sienna's room to try and get away, but Art ends up catching him and drugging him and kidnapping him. And then he also takes Sienna's sword in the process that Jonathan tried to use to protect himself. Meanwhile, at this party, Sienna has no idea what's happening, and now she sees a vision of the little pale girl. She has a panic attack over this, so she has her friend Brooke and her boyfriend Jeff drive her home. But while they're driving her home, Sienna gets a call from her brother Jonathan saying hey, I'm at the abandoned carnival, I need help, come get me. But we see what's happening on the other end of that phone call, and it's actually the little pale girl impersonating Jonathan, who was passed out in the back seat as Art the Clown is driving them to the carnival. The carnival is also the place where Art killed the little pale girl, or Emily Crane, years before. So they get to the carnival, Sienna's wait right here, I'll be right back. You know how that always goes. Art brutally murders Brooke's boyfriend Jeff in the car while Brooke runs inside and he follows her. And then he viciously kills Brooke in the bathroom. Sienna finds Brooke's dead body, and then Art shows up, and a fight ensues between the two of them. She puts up a good fight, but Art manages to knock her unconscious. When she wakes up, she finds Art cutting Jonathan with a scalpel and attacks Art and manages to overpower him this time. And she proceeds to absolutely obliterate him with his own weapons, but every time he dies, Art keeps resurrecting. Eventually, Art stabs Sienna with her own sword that he took from his house and then throws her into a pool of water. We see this kind of weird scene of Sienna in this tank of water being pulled down by an octopus type thing, but she manages to fight it off and then she's resurrected. She comes back to find Art trying to eat Jonathan, and then she decapitates Art with her sword. And then we see the little pale girl pick up Art's head and just leave. And Sienna and Jonathan are safe and victorious. But then we get our post-credits scene. So again, remember Vicky from the first movie? She's now institutionalized, and we cut to a scene in the hospital that she's in. The final scene is a nurse walking into her room after she has just given birth to Art the Clown's head, which she is cradling as her own baby.